Insurance agents from around the world, welcome to the Insurance Guys podcast. My name is Scott Howell, your fearless host and leader, insurance agency owner and insurance evangelist for I Protect Insurance and Financial Services, based out of Huntsville, Alabama. And before we get started on today's episode, please help me welcome. He is a 6'3" sophomore from Mobile, Alabama, parade first team All-American, Rivals 5-star recruit. He is a fantastic insurance agent and a great American. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome the incomparable Mr. Bradley Flowers. How are you, Bradley?
I'm great. How are you?
Best I've ever been, Bradley. I've been in Mobile, Alabama now for, 14 hours. I got here at about 8:45 this morning. And since the time I've been here, the multitude of houses, but especially the first house across the street from your office now has a standing seam metal roof on it.
They put the roof on today?
Just since this morning. So you had a funny story. I want to hear it.
So as you know, we have a large team in the Philippines that does data entry and billing and that sort of thing for us. Okay. So, it's a little sketchy sending them gifts because it may get lost in the mail, that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
So last Christmas, we wanted to send everybody over there a care package. So we picked one guy who was the only one we were going to send the packages to.
Right.
And I said, we're going to send double the stuff. So we're going to send the same package twice. That way we increase our chances that one of them makes it there. Best case scenario, both packages.
And then he can disperse it out amongst other people. Yeah.
Yeah. All of our folks live in the same town.
Sure.
And they all live in Manila, in our city.
We do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so best case scenario, everybody gets double the stuff. Worst case scenario, one package makes it. So we put together American stuff that they can't get over there. We got them some Waffle House swag.
Oh, that's great.
Some, non-perishable food items and some portal swag, right? So we shipped the packages to this one guy. The day when Shelby got back from the post office, he turns in his notice.
Like packages are still probably sitting at the post office.
Right.
Yeah.
So I tell Kenneth, I was like, Kenneth's sort of their boss. I tell Kenneth, Kenneth's my integrator. I tell Kenneth, I said, hey, get this other guy, whose name's John, get this other guy to go get the packages from him.
But let me stop you there. Did you guys, when the guy that
he knew it was
turned in his notice, did y'all leave it in a way that he would have been like, it's still okay that I'm getting these packages, I'll get them to where they need to go?
Yes, but he was going to work for a competitor. So I was slightly worried about the competitor, him talking this was our best guy over there, by the way, that quit. The one who we were sending was our second best, so I was a little worried about that. And this is just kind of a funny story. There's no moral, but so he goes and gets the packages from him. Both packages make it. That's awesome. He gets the packages from him, disperses them to everybody else. They're all happy. It's great. Okay, that was December of last year. In September of this year,
last month.
so Andrew Ryan has another agency that he is consulting with. Okay, and he sits in on their leadership meetings and helps them with all kind of stuff. And he jumps in the Zoom call. The guy's meeting with his people in the Philippines. He jumps in the Zoom call while these other people are jumping off. And he calls me. He's like, hey. He's like, did you used to have somebody in the Philippines named Jasper? That's the guy that quit.
Yeah.
I said, yes. And he said, I jump in this call with these people from Manila, and I see a blue Portal Insurance t-shirt.
Sure.
And I was like, you have got to be kidding me. Number one, what are the chances that this agency in Boston, Massachusetts Number two, he grabbed him a T-shirt before he turned the package
You damn
over.
right he did.
So that was just kind of like a crazy, like, what are the chances story, you know?
That's
but
awesome.
yeah, he was a great team member. We actually reached back out to him a few months after he quit and tried to hire him back, but he was happy where he was. So.
Guys, I have got one of the, I guess, most look forward to podcasts for myself, selfishly, happening here today. And I've got some things I'm going to share a little bit later, a few little happies, little surprises. But I want to bring our guest on because, you know, we don't have much time. I want to give him the introduction he's always deserved, but I think he's going to be surprised with some of the things I show him today and talk about. But I am wildly interested in an area of expertise that he has, and it's something that I've been wanting to do for some period of time. But let me just go ahead and give him the intro. So he's originally from Decatur, Georgia, and he currently resides in Fairhope, Alabama. He is married to the beautiful Amber, and in 1994, he began a new degree in business management at the University of Mobile.
Go Rams.
That's
Go
right.
Rams.
At that time, he also started working at Office Equipment Company, OEC. And during his time there, he had started and sold a website development and technology consulting business. In 2015, he left OEC to take a position at AltaWorks, which was a smaller technology company that provided more hands-on experience in many different business areas, such as data center management, finance, marketing. And in 2023, he decided to take on a different challenge with a new visionary at Sexton Lawn and Landscape. In this role, he is leading an amazing team, transforming their organization for the future with EOS, ding, 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 EOS as the guiding business operating system. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my profound honor today to introduce to you first-time guest on the IGP, Mr. Forrest Derr. How are you, Forrest?
I'm wonderful. That was the best intro I've ever had.
I don't know about that.
At least today.
So
We need a montage of people saying that.
So Forrest, first of all, I usually let Bradley say this. Very unusual that he and I get an in-person, face-to-face kneecap guest in the studio. Most of our people are on television. Mm-hmm. So that is exciting to me today. But more importantly than that, for the last 2 years, I have been talking about and threatening to implement EOS in my agency. So much so that in one of my mastermind insurance industry groups that I'm a member of, and I've really enjoyed this, but we actually have what is called a accountability partner. Mm-hmm. And my accountability partner and his agency, the two brothers that we brought on to talk about EOS. I can't, my memory, because I'm on so much cold medicine right now, I can't remember. He and his brother came on, we talked about EOS. Anyway, we
talked about it a lot, I don't remember.
He's my accountability partner, and we were on there, I guess, 3 or 4 months ago.
Oh, you're talking about Alan Kinney and Drew Kinney.
Yes, Drew Kinney. Drew Kinney's my accountability partner. And
how much pressure has he been putting on you to do EOS?
Well, hold on, I'm about to show you. I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to show you.
Okay.
So he's my accountability partner, and we were talking, and I said, "Man, I really want to implement EOS. I don't understand enough about it. People are telling me to hire a coach. Blah 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 blah." He said, "Scott, I'm going to tell you what you do. Go to Amazon, and I want you to buy a book." And I brought the book. Mm-mm. Here it is. The book is entitled. What the heck is EOS?
It is a great book.
Yeah. I got this book probably 2 weeks ago in the mail.
Yeah.
So this is going to turn into Forrest convincing Scott to.
I don't think I'm past that. I don't think there has to be any.
So that book
convincing.
I require all of our salaried employees to read that when they come on board.
Okay.
so they understand EOS. So yeah, it's a great book.
It's a great book. It's fairly large type.
Got pictures and things.
It's got pictures, graphs, and it's not very long. I don't know how many pages this is, but it looks like about 140.
Yeah.
And I cannot wait to get into this book. I've actually had it in my car. Bradley came in. You were in the lobby. I said, Bradley, what are we talking to Forrest about? He said, EOS. I said, oh, I got something I got to go get out of the car for him.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about, I don't want to go too far back in time. When were you introduced to EOS? Because the more I hear about EOS, the more I think every insurance agency in America needs to at least be running some version. Maybe it's I know y'all kind of do a bastardized version of it. It's not exact, but it's close. When did you get introduced to EOS, and how did you kind of get to where you are today?
And he spent a lot of time in the insurance industry too, if you want to talk about that.
I spent about 2 months for an internship back in 1997, New York Life.
On behalf of the industry, we would like to apologize that that's where you were.
Yeah.
Well, it was kind of difficult because they said just go get your church directory and find all your old ladies and sell them insurance.
Turns out
that was the internship.
They wanted the church directory. They didn't want you.
Directory. That's right. So a very short career in insurance. But how I got into EOS was my visionary at the time read a book called Traction.
Yep.
And literally walked in my office and threw the book at me. And he said, we've got to figure this out. This is how we're going to run our business. And of course, he had thrown a lot of books at me over the years, and it was like, okay, flavor of the month, I'll read it, and then we'll put it to the side and put it on the shelf. But after I read it, I was like, okay, this is definitely my jam. And so we dove in completely, immediately. We tried to self-implement for about 30 days, and then we hired an implementer, a coach, to help us implement. Yep. And so that was how we got started. It was about 6 years ago.
And how long so here's another part of the story. I guess first, for those people that are listening, maybe they have not heard the Kenny Brothers podcast that we did about EOS, or maybe they just haven't heard about EOS. Tell our audience first, before I deep dive into some more, drilled down questions about some things. What is EOS? And just give everybody kind of an overview of what it is.
What's your definition of EOS?
Yes.
That's what I want to hear too.
So my definition of EOS is that it is a operating system for your business.
Yep.
And when I think about an operating system, I think about a computer. So you think about your Windows computer or your Mac, depending on which side of the fence you're on. But that base operating system is really what EOS, whether it's Windows or Mac OS, whatever version it is right now. But that's the base for your business to operate. It's how you have your meetings. It's how you have your accountability chart. It's how you plan out your vision. It's how you communicate and make sure everybody in your company is on the same page. That's what EOS is to me. And really, it's for any business, not just insurance agencies too.
Yeah, my definition is it gets everybody on your team rowing in the same direction towards the same goal.
Rowing in the same direction and going the same goal.
And it's funny, like the first time I heard operating system for your business, I think to some people that may come across a little bit cheesy, but if you actually think about the word operating and flip it around to this is the system in which we operate our business, it actually makes more sense
I like that.
to call that an operating system than Mac OS.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, because
right.
that's what you do in a business is you operate.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So the top of this back of this book, the back jacket of this book that I have in my hands, which is called "What the Heck is EOS?" ? It says, "Have you struggled to roll out EOS to all levels of your organization?" And I will answer that with a definitive yes, because the deeper I get into this and the more I want to get it started, people start asking me questions. And those questions are, have you done this, this, and this? Mm-hmm. And until you do this, this, and this, and we'll get into what those things are in a second, you can't really get started. Mm-hmm. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Core values, mission statement. Do you have those things? No, I don't have those things. Well, you got to put the horse has got to be before the cart, not after. So talk a little bit about why Scott has been unable to, I guess, kick the ball off the tee to get EOS started.
First thing I would say, and you've probably heard this from other people, is you probably need an implementer.
Yeah.
So you're the visionary of your company, I would imagine.
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how often are you distracted by shiny things?
Oh,
and
every 30 minutes.
Bright colors and all the various things. So as a visionary, it's going to be very hard for you to roll this out without somebody to hold you accountable. You were talking about an accountability part,
right?
Without having a coach. So you really need to have somebody that can walk you through that proven process. And it's difficult for visionaries to keep their attention span and get everybody on the same page.
Sure.
And really that's what EOS does. And there's a proven process to actually onboard.
Got you. And so one of the questions or things I've noticed with my friends in the insurance industry, and I don't know that Bradley, I know he mentioned this briefly, but I don't know that you, Forrest, understand how big EOS is right now in the insurance industry. It is a hot button topic. Yeah. It is something that most agency owners that I'm friends with have implemented some form of it, okay? But one thing I have noticed over being a third-party observer to EOS for the past 2 years is as I get back in touch with people who I've heard talk about it and how wonderful it is, I'm now getting, again, there's been about 2 years go by, I'm getting this smattering of people that are saying, yeah, we had to let our EOS coach go and hire a new one. Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming that's for the reason for that may be that maybe the company or the visionaries, the goals, the mission, the things they want to achieve or ideals that they have maybe don't match up with their coach. Am I to assume that, or is it just
where I would sit is that if the coach is not aligned with following EOS and the pure process of onboarding EOS, then that can cause problems with that implementation. So, in my experience, implementers are really agnostic to the business. They don't necessarily need to be an insurance agent EOS coach or an insurance agent EOS implementer. They need to be focused on implementing EOS pure. Right. And the EOS implementers that I've interacted with, the people that actually do EOS pure, they don't have that issue.
Got you.
So I want to ask a question and clarify, like, you don't sell your services to anybody else. So I don't want anybody listening to think, oh, this guy's just trying to sell me something.
Yep. I am not an implementer.
I'm glad you said that.
That's good. That's good.
Which is probably why you're on here, and we did,
it reframes their reference of like, oh, they've got this guy on here trying to be
implementer coaches reach out, and I'm like, I don't want to do an hour-long commercial for you. You know what I mean?
Right.
So now you can probably point people in the right direction. To
absolutely.
But so what if I'm on EOS and I want to hire an implementer? What does that implementer do? Because I don't think that's talked about enough.
Yeah, and I guess let me back up a little bit and just make sure I frame what my role is.
Exactly.
I'm an integrator in the company. So I work inside the company where an implementer works on the outside, coaching
and let's
the company.
be super clear. People in Mobile that are listening to this know who Sexton Landscaping is. But people don't. It's a large company.
Yeah, very large.
Very large, very successful
large landscaping company.
Commercial.
Commercial and residential. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Thank you. So I'm an integrator, so I work inside the company. An implementer works outside the company. And what does an implementer do? And why would I, as an integrator, have an implementer? An implementer comes in as a non-biased third party to coach you through the process of onboarding. And that onboarding can look different depending on what the company looks like. So onboarding an engagement could be 18 months, could be 2 years. The company I worked for before, we used an implementer for 4 years. And what that implementer does is they have a process that they go through. It's a focus day 1, focus day 2, where they build your core values, your vision, your accountability chart, your rocks, those types of things. They really get you launched into EOS. And then they start doing a quarterly process. So every quarter, EOS is a 90-day world. Every 90 days, you reset, figure out what you accomplished in the last quarter, what do you need to accomplish in the next quarter, and set out goals for the next quarter. And that implementer comes in and spends a day with you every quarter.
Are they sitting in on the meetings, or is it just one-on-one with the leadership?
They sit in on the leadership meeting during that quarterly meeting. They don't sit in on the weekly meetings. They sit just on that quarterly meeting.
Gotcha.
So they actually run the meeting for you, which enables the leadership team to focus on the business.
Right. Yeah, interesting. So one question I have, I want to get your thoughts on. So I was introduced to EOS from Matt Namoli and Zach Gould, two like the smartest guys I've ever met, great entrepreneurs. They're up in the Northeast. It completely turned their business around.
Yeah.
And I heard them give a presentation where they mentioned it, and I was like, hey, what's this thing? And the average independent agency that, of our listeners, the average company is probably going to have about 7 to 10 employees. And the advice that I was given is, hey, when you start out and you've only got a few employees, your leadership team is going to be your entire. It's going to be all your employees.
A lot of times it is.
And that's cool. That's fine. At what point does that? Do you think at what employee count do you need to transition from? Hey, everybody's in the meeting to now we have our leadership team. And how do you navigate that with the other people who might not get the nod to be in the leadership team?
Yeah.
And have you dealt with that?
Yeah. A little bit. So when we started EOS at the company I was with before, AltaWorks, we had, I think it was like 18 or 19 employees.
Okay.
So it was pretty straightforward that we had a leadership team already. We were already meeting.
You probably already had.
We just weren't meeting consistently or very well, and weren't having good meetings. So we already have an established leadership team at that point in time. But we did go through the process of the several team members on the team. We got to a point where we outgrew their abilities. Yeah. That's what I have had experience in, is actually having to adjust that leadership team. We actually expanded our leadership team up to 8 people, and then we compressed it back down to 4. Yeah. We got too big, too many lines of communication, and outgrew some of the team members.
Yeah. So at what point, if I'm at 7 employees and I'm hiring, at what point would you look at? I'll tell you when we did it. Yeah. We did it at 10. When we got to 10 employees, I was like, okay, we need to pull 3 people out. Yeah. That's the leadership team. And then
I think that's a good number to use as a reference. I think every company's a little bit differently in how they operate, but there's a graphic that I've shared a bunch of times on LinkedIn. It's the lines of communication, and as you add people, 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 to 10, exponentially those lines increase. And that's the problem, is that trust starts breaking down and you outgrow members. So.
I think what happens too, and this is not necessarily speaking of EOS, but just companies in general, I think where a lot of growing companies make a mistake. When you start your company, we started from scratch. It was just me and 2 employees day one, 2 direct reports, no departments or anything like that. I think a lot of businesses get caught in that mindset of, all right, I'm the boss, and all of these 15 people are going to report to me, and I call that a flat culture. And I don't think a flat culture is good for anyone, because you've got these 15 people who feel like they're not getting enough face time with the boss. Right. The boss is run ragged because
got too many direct reports.
You have too many direct reports. And I think that is a core issue to a lot of the cultural issues that take place in small and medium-sized businesses today. And one thing that I like about EOS is it sort of forces that, like,
forces the conversation.
Yeah, and you have, okay, here's my leader. It's like, so like for us, we have myself, director of sales, director of operations, director of service, and then depending on what role each person is, they report to that person. 85 to 90% of the issues get solved between those 2 people. It's better for the employee because their issues can get solved faster. It's better for me because I'm not having to deal with every little small issue, and that sort of thing. And then only when it's a bad issue or an issue that can't be solved does it get bumped up.
Yeah, and that's the sweet spot when EOS really starts working well, is when your leadership team is only dealing with issues that are VTO issues. Yes. That's the Vision Traction Organizer, for those who have not heard. That's the 5-year plan, the 3-year plan, the 1-year picture. If you get to your leadership team to where they are, basically firing on all cylinders, and every issue that's on that issues list is a VTO issue, that's when you know you got a EOS working well.
Yeah.
So Bradley, I got a question for you.
Okay.
And I'm just speaking through all these insurance agents listening right now. Excuse me. So when you implemented EOS, okay, in your agency, how did you choose the 4 or 5 people that you had on your leadership team? So what was your criteria?
When we started, it was the whole company, because we were at maybe five people. So it was the whole company. And then when we grew, we got lucky because we acquired another agency, And when we acquired that agency, we inherited 5 employees. And so the people who didn't continue to be on the leadership team, it was sort of like, hey, we don't want 15 people in here. We're going to have to break this up. So that was like a good time to do that.
Yeah.
So how I chose, I mean, like everything else, based on merit, like who's
pulling their weight,
who's the best at the job, who's following the process, that sort of thing. And it's a great. It's good for me because when these issues come up in our leadership meetings, the part you can talk more about this process, but part of the process is issue comes up, we create a solution or create a plan to find a solution, and we assign that to someone.
Yep.
So everything's not on your shoulders to solve that problem. Hey, Megan, you got to solve this, and then come back next week and tell us why. Right. The other thing, so the first thing that Matt and Zach told me that got my attention about EOS, it was the issues list.
Yeah, issues list is huge.
And this may be wrong, but what they told me is they said, okay, you have your issues list, and when employees come to you with issues throughout the week, which when you get to a certain point, that's all you're dealing with, and you tell them, put this on the issues list, and we'll talk about it in the leadership meeting. What it does is one of 3 things happens. Either it's something so small that they don't feel like it's worthy of the meeting.
So they won't put it on there.
Correct.
Yeah.
Number 2, well, the meeting's not till Tuesday. Today's Thursday. They solve it in the meantime. Or 3, it goes on there and you solve it.
Yeah.
And so it eliminates a lot of the little minute thing. And
the hallway water cooler conversations,
correct.
The decisions that get thrown on you in the middle of the day.
And that was the thing for me that I was like, all right, I got to get this book and read it.
Yeah. It's huge. It really is. I'll challenge you to do it in your marriage.
Yeah.
Wow.
I do it in my marriage.
Do you run on EOS?
My wife and I run
That's
on
what we
EOS.
need to talk about.
Yeah.
Tell us more about that.
Hold on one second. So here's my question. I'm writing all this down. Runs well in marriage.
Yes.
Here's my question. On one end of the spectrum, I have Bradley, who has read the EOS book and implemented some of it. I think a lot of it possibly, but doesn't have a implementer or a coach who comes in once a quarter, reevaluates, reassesses, kind of does it his way on his, the way he does it, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that, I'm sure. It's better than what I'm doing, which is nothing. But on the other end of that spectrum, you got a guy like Brett Merrill who, for the past, I want to say 2.5 years, has an implementer that is not a full-time employee of theirs, obviously, because this needs to be somebody outside.
Yeah.
But, I mean, this is somebody he's paying
good money.
Yeah. Every quarter they're meeting. They're, they have this continual implementer working with them to readjust goals and things like that. So talk a little about that. What, one better than the other? Does it matter? Is it just kind of what's best for your company kind of thing, or how does that work?
I think it's better to have an implementer.
Okay.
Definitely not knocking how
No.
did it. I think a company that can implement it themselves and fully implement it is rare without an implementer. So I think
I would agree with that.
I think Bradley's got a rare business.
I do think we would be better if we had one. We just haven't done it.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And I think that's what it's like. Any type of sporting. If you're a pitcher, you get a pitching coach to teach you how to pitch. You could learn how to pitch, but you probably need somebody to.
Yeah, you could go to YouTube and watch.
That's right.
Videos.
You could go to YouTube. You could read some books, but if you had somebody that was you need to tweak this just a little bit, throw that. So I think that implementer really does help those businesses get on board faster and more effective.
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
How in the hell do you bring a third-party implementer into your marriage?
Didn't do that.
Okay. I was sitting there thinking, are we bringing some cat in to...
No, I self-implemented.
And is it a male or a female?
Exactly. Yeah. Like, how's this working? What are we doing?
Which side are they choosing? And the question I usually get is who's the visionary and who's the integrator? I'm not answering that question.
Yeah.
Not on public record. But,
Sure.
But yeah, implementer definitely will help a business get on board faster and more effectively and run on EOS better. The company AltaWorks I worked for before, We used an implementer for 4 years, and
Wow.
frankly, he kept telling us after about 18 months, he was like, "You really don't need me anymore." And we like you.
Yeah,
And it really does help to
He's
have
your security blanket to some degree.
security blanket, but also having that third party run that quarterly meeting, and that way you don't have to have somebody else taking up their time running it, and you can focus on the issues.
And I want to go back to that because I asked Bradley that question, and he was kind enough to answer it. But that quarterly meeting that the implementer's running is with the team,
with
right?
the leadership team. Correct.
Leadership team.
Yeah, with your leadership
and
team.
then as the visionary, are you in that as well?
Absolutely. The visionary is in there. Correct.
And how do you keep somebody with a strong personality? Let's say a Chris Paradiso.
Yeah.
Chris Paradiso's got a like him,
he has
hate
an
him, whatever.
He has
He's going to have an
implementer.
opinion.
He has an implementer.
How do you, I know, yeah, right. But what my question is like with a strong personality that's going to have an opinion that's going to be a very strong opinion, how does the implementer navigate those waters to keep him from almost single-handedly
Steamrolling the meeting.
basically? Yeah.
That's the implementer's job. That's why they get paid. So that's number one. But number two, the visionary has to buy in and want the implementer to be part of that business. So if you've got a visionary that will not,
I could also see that being where some tension could.
I've been in some very tense meetings, but they do make these little not stuffed, but foam animals. I don't know if you've seen the EOS animals, but there's EOS animals that you can buy, and there's a cow for like a sacred cow. There's a squirrel for when the visionary's squirreling. There's a bull for when somebody's being a bully. And basically, you get those foam animals and put them on your table, and then you can throw them during the meeting.
At each other?
At each other, yeah. I mean, they don't hurt, but they definitely will get your attention if you get hit by a squirrel.
That's awesome. So tell us about, I want to hear more about the marriage thing. So
Okay.
I'm guessing you guys have quarterly goals, annual goals, like every marriage should have. And you meet weekly.
Yeah. So I guess I'm going to tell you what happened. What happened is she saw what was going on with the company, how organized and structured it was, and she started asking me some questions about it. And I was like, hey, why don't we do this in the house? This would help our marriage, I think, because at the end of the day, we're married, been married for 27 years now. Every year's another year, just kind of floating along, doing our thing, raising kids, whatever.
It's real easy to go through the motions.
Didn't have a strategy that we had mapped out. And so that book right there, I gave that book to her and I said, read this first. Okay. And so she read it, and then we started having weekly meetings, and she appreciates it now. So she'll text me and say, hey, we need to talk about such and such on a Wednesday afternoon, and I'll text back and say, put it on IDS. And she knows what to do. She puts it on IDS on Saturday. So Saturday morning, we drink coffee a lot. So Saturday mornings, we have a coffee shop we go to from 8 to 9:30, and we have a level 10 meeting. And it's all the issues that came up during the week that we need to talk about. And sometimes the issues are solved before we get there. Yeah. Just like you were talking about. Sometimes that happens. Other times it's something we got to talk through. But we have a quarterly meeting as well where we have rocks.
Do you get the kids involved?
We have not, and only because our son graduated from college or graduated from high school, and he's gone. Oh, okay. So he's 22 now. We just started this, I think, 3 years ago.
I was about to say, I could imagine if you'd have started it when he was like 12.
I wish we had. I wish I'd known about it.
There would have been some interesting L10 meetings.
Interesting L10, yeah. I wish we had, though, because I think it would have been good for our family, because it was just the three of us. We only had one child. But, he was gone before we started.
We interviewed, I don't know if you remember this, one of the funniest things you've ever said. We interviewed Billy Wagner, who's a friend of ours. And Billy Wagner he's probably on EOS as well. As a matter of fact, I know he is. Runs a large company in Jacksonville. And Billy is obsessed with time. And I think his goal is to save 1 day a year.
Interesting.
So, for example, he got all of the hair lasered off of his face, so he didn't have to waste time shaving.
Okay.
He sounds like a psychopath. He's not. He's a really nice guy, but like stuff like to that
it's
to
real.
That degree. Hey, brought a consultant in to his house, who organized his house. So that things were in the right spot. So that
shortest distance to walk.
Exactly. Like we just built a house, and this is such first world problems. Our ice maker is the furthest point it could possibly be from the water and the glasses. So I have to, and I get pissed off. And I'm kind of like that too about time.
Right,
He'll tell you this, but like I'm get so pissed because I have to walk all the way back. I'm
time to remodel the kitchen.
10 seconds over 3 times a day over 20 years. You know, anyway. Yeah. But Billy was telling us how his family does family meetings with their kids, and we got off the air, and I remember Scott said, I think Wyatt was 15 at the time, and Scott was like, this is how it would go with Wyatt, and you went into a little skit of like, why are we here? Like, it was funny, but that's interesting. I've never heard of anybody doing that in their marriage. And just so we give the listeners context, you literally have an EOS tattoo.
Yes, I did that this year.
Okay,
so it's an integrator tattoo, and so what I ended up doing was, I'm 50 years old. Started working at a landscaping company, went from telecom to landscaping, no tattoos, and I went to a conference, a landscaping conference, and I was naked. I was the only one without a tattoo, and I was like, I'm going to get something, but I want it to mean something. So
that's the only reason I don't have a tattoo.
That's what it was. I was like, I'm going to get something if I want it to mean something, and so I went to a tattoo artist, and I said, I want to do an integrator circuit because I'm an integrator, so I want to do an electric integrator circuit, and he said, I don't do boring tattoos. You're going to have to come up with something better than that. And so he actually worked with me over 2 different sessions to design this. And it is the EOS story, from the visionary ideas to the resistance you meet in business to getting people and consistent processes. You get all that together, it builds equity value. Yeah. And that is the EOS story right there.
So for someone who literally has the EOS tattoo, can you think of a moment or maybe tell a story about when you realized, oh, wait, this works? What was that? Did you have that sort of aha moment, that inflection point where you're like, this, I believe in this now? Or was it a slow burn? Or
I would say it was after I read Rocket Fuel, which is a book about the visionary integrator relationship. And what happened is, after I read that and looked back in history, I determined or came up with the fact that I was an integrator, a closet integrator. And what I look back on, I was at a company called OEC, and I worked there for 18 years, and I worked with the president, but I worked behind the scenes with the president for years and years and years. And I look back, and when I left, one of the things he told me, which still sticks with me to this day, is he said, nobody knows how much I depend on you and how much we work together behind the scenes to make things happen. And I was like, okay, well, that's one of the reasons why I'm leaving, because I'm ready to do something different.
Yeah.
But I think it was that moment when I look back in history and said, that was the relationship that we had. And then as I progressed with the visionary at AltaWorks, and we started having VI days and started meeting on a regular basis and planning out the business, it was like, okay, this is how it's supposed to be done. And there's lots of examples of that VI relationship. There's Walt Disney and Roy Disney. They were brothers, but if you look at Walt, he was the visionary, and Roy was the integrator. You look at Warren Buffett.
Yep,
Charlie Munger.
Charlie Munger was his integrator. He didn't call it the integrator, but you can. Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak. There's so much.
Or even Tim Cook. In the later days.
There's so many different examples in history of businesses that need that visionary, but also need that grounded person that can challenge the visionary, and openly and honestly, talk through issues and figure out where the business needs to go.
Do you think? Let me ask one question real quick. Do you think somebody could be both?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I think there are a lot. No, there's not a lot. I think there are people who can score well on a test. There's a test you can take to kind of help you figure out what you are. But I don't think somebody can do both jobs well.
I know for me, and I think this is the case with a lot of business owners who haven't done it, and I'm not talking about you.
I don't mind if you are.
I think ego gets in the way a little bit, because I dealt with that when I first started reading Traction. It's like I wanted to be both.
Yeah.
And you build this thing up. It's your baby. It's your company, and you're like, I don't want to. I want to be the one who implements it, but I also want to be the visionary too. And you get in this like ego battle with yourself. And I think,
what are you?
I'm the visionary. Kenneth's the integrator.
Do I
think I could do both? Not well. Do I also think I could be the integrator? Yes. I don't, in my current frame of mind for like the past 2 years, don't have the patience for it. And Kenneth has much better patience than I do.
Could he be the visionary?
Does a way better job. I think he could. I think you could.
I don't think I could be one. And I look back and I go, and I started a technology website development business, but man, I was scared to death all the time trying to figure out how to make
payroll.
Not make payroll because I was just the only employee, but just
pay the bills.
Just trying to pay the bills, and I just didn't have it in me. But that's that. I guess this is a long answer to say when I figured out that I was in the right place to be in that second in command, that's where I really felt like I realized that this is working.
Yeah, so. And when I made Kenneth director of operations, I told him, I was like, the analogy I used, and this is 100% not me comparing myself to Charlie Monk to Warren Buffett, but I was like, I basically explained, because he's a young guy.
I met him. He was the first time I met when I got here.
Yeah, I said, you're my Charlie. And I want to get you involved in more projects down the road. And we have since then. We've Kenneth, I, and Scott have started.
You've done a really good job of that, actually.
Companies and stuff. But
listen, I want to brag on you. You've done a really good job of finding some rungs on the ladder that he can get involved with and feel more ownership.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I think if you've got, now I'm going to say something, I'm going to be very careful when I say this. So I've tried to do that. My problem was I had the wrong people on the bus.
Yeah.
Now, before you start trying to find really talented, good people who need more rungs to feel that ownership and first thing you got to do is find the right people. Because if you got the wrong people and then you're giving them more responsibility, more ownership, more things to do, and they're the wrong people, it just creates a nightmare. And you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So
and it's it's
just not going to work.
I got lucky with. I mean, we have today we've got 16 employees. As of right now, we have the best team we've ever had, and a lot of that was luck. And not to throw anybody under the bus, but we had to kiss a lot of frogs along the way.
Yep,
sure. I think everybody does.
I heard somebody say, "I've never hired a bad person, but I've fired many."
Yeah,
right.
And and we've had and you kind of know. What's the quickest you've ever known somebody wasn't going to work out?
About 3 days.
Yeah. Mine was about 10 seconds.
But do you trust your gut?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the issue.
Mine
I
was
still
10
have to this
seconds.
day. Yeah,
I had a guy that we hired that first day, 8 o'clock, day one, we're walking to my office, and before he sat down in the chair, the conversation, I was like, yes.
Made an inappropriate comment or something.
Made an inappropriate comment about a female employee.
Oh, yeah.
And,
you're like,
but now I do trust. I think that's one of the biggest problems with businesses right now, especially insurance agencies, is not having the discipline to fire when they know they need to.
Hire quickly and fire quickly.
Yeah. I think, and what happens, Forrest, is when you are willing to fire quickly in an appropriate way that is in the best interest of that person, right? It makes hiring way easier. Yeah.
You're also helping that person.
You are. You're
holding them back when you keep them.
Yeah, you're holding them hostage.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's some folks that the only that's the only wake up call they can get. Sure. And there was a lady we hired last year that on paper decent fit, and about a month and a half, 2 months in, I was like, look, that's not going to work out here. Well, I can't really give you a reason. I've just done this long enough to know a year from now you're not going to be happy and I'm not going to be happy. I think you need to go somewhere else. Set her up with an interview. She got the job. Yeah. And so I think we got really lucky. I mean, like with Kenneth. Kenneth was.
He does have gray hair.
He does have gray hair. He didn't have the hair back then, but Kenneth worked at Chick-fil-A. No. And he was a manager at Chick-fil-A.
Those are great employees to hire.
I was like, manager at Chick-fil-A, you're in. And then Natasha fell in my lap from an angel in the sky, just fell in my lap. Somebody called me and said they knew somebody. And I was like, please be Natasha, because I knew her. And they were like, it's Natasha. I was like, yes. And so both of them together. And then Megan was Natasha's niece. That's our leadership team. Megan we've made her service manager. and add her to the leadership team just in the last 3 or 4 months. And she had management experience at a restaurant, and I don't always deliver stuff in the most direct way. Her ability to be direct and kind is like uncanny. And I don't even know that she does it. Whereas I tend to either lean, I'm like on this like pyramid, and I either lean too much a-hole or too much, oh, it's fine. You know what I mean?
That's a visionary.
So we've gotten really lucky with a lot of people. I don't think it's because of anything that I've done.
Well, this has been a lot of hard work and a lot of time and effort, and regardless of how it shook out, I'm proud of you, and I'm happy that it's shaken out the way it has. And I think getting back to Forrest and his expertise in this field, one of the things I wanted to talk to these agents about, or let him talk, is discuss for a minute the framework of EOS and the 6 key components that, by the way, every single business in America has these components, whether you want them to or not. And what are they? I'm sure if you don't, I wrote them down, but it's the 6 key components. And I think before I let you go here, imagine a pizza, a pizza, and you put a small little circle in the middle, and that's your company. But then you divide the pieces out into 6 categories, okay? So we've got a large pizza, your company, whatever you do, whether it's landscaping, insurance, accounting. Rand, what would you say your company is? Video production. Video production in the center. There's going to be 6 pieces of that pizza, okay? And within each one of those 6 pieces represents one piece of what every single company in America is a component of that company. What are those, Forrest? Talk a little bit about those.
You're going to put me on the spot without.
No, well, I've got them here. So if you get tripped up.
Yeah, so vision is the first, and that's, what is the company doing? What's the 5-year plan? What's the 1-year plan? What's
and
the
you mentioned vision first. Is that kind of the one you work on first?
Because it's part of what you work on first is to build out the vision for the company. And that ends up being in what's called a VTO, a Vision Traction Organizer, which is a 2-page business plan. Then you have a data component. Your data component is all the scorecard metrics that you need to make sure that your company's operating properly.
And are you listing these in order of these 6 components we're talking about? Kind of order of importance? Is that?
I don't know that I'm going to list them in order of importance. That they're all
except vision. Vision is kind of the first.
Vision. Yeah. So the data component is the scorecard metrics, the items that you need to track. And then you've got a people component. And that's the right person, right seat. We were just talking about that earlier. Sure. So you got to make sure you have the right person in the right seat. Help me out. Process component. So it's how you do things. What is the way that your business does things? It's the 20% of things that you do that produce 80% of the results. You got to document that and make sure it's documented clearly and concisely so that everybody knows what to do.
Next one is traction.
Traction. So that's your meetings. That's your meeting pulse. So you're having L10 meetings. You're having quarterly conversations with your people.
And I want to stop right there.
Yeah.
I heard Mr. Flowers a minute ago. The two of you, because you're in it and you know it, unlike some of us hand-raised guy here, I heard him say L10 meeting or level 10 meeting. You said L10 meeting.
Yep.
Both times I thought a lot of people like me don't know what L10 or level 10 meeting means.
I'm going to tell you, that's the sweet spot, in my opinion, and here's why I say it's the sweet spot. I have yet to have a single person come in and sit in on an L10 meeting that I run or have seen run properly that they didn't walk out and say, I'm going to go implement EOS.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean they've implemented it.
But why?
But why? Because they see the magic of a meeting that actually means something.
Yeah.
So that L10 is very structured. It's 90 minutes. And how many times have you been in a meeting where it's supposed to be an hour and it ends up being 3 hours? How many times have you been in a meeting and you go in there and you talk about all this stuff and you've already talked about it last week, but you never solved the issues?
Sure.
How many times have you gone into a meeting and you go, who was supposed to do this? I don't remember. That's what that L10 does, is it puts everything all in one place. Yes. So
in the context in which I heard you say the word L10, meeting.
Sure.
We were talking earlier, and you're going to hear me keep referencing back to this. your marriage EOS.
Yes.
And I heard you say, hey, put it down. We'll have an L10.
Put it on IDS. Yep.
So is the L10 meeting a set, defined, you said Saturday morning, 8 a.m., 7, whatever.
Yeah.
That's your L10 meeting with your wife.
Yeah.
And so throughout the week, is she putting issues
Yes.
on a piece of paper for the 8 a.m. L10 meeting?
I can just see my wife now, like, you didn't take the
I
trash
think
out.
you and Laurel would do well. I
list.
think you and Laurel would do well with this.
So it's I use a software called 90, and I'm a big proponent
Like
of
the 90?
like NINETY.
You guys use that in the company too?
Yep,
Yeah.
use that in the company.
What does it do?
So what it does, we talk about EOS as an operating system. This software is the software that you can use to manage EOS.
Oh, okay.
It keeps up with your VTO. It keeps up with your accountability chart. It keeps up with your processes. And it tracks all your meetings and helps you go through the process. It's got a timer. It's like idiot proof. You start a meeting, first 5 minutes is a segue. Share something personal and professional, good news.
And what does VTO stand for?
Vision Traction Organizer.
Okay. So
that is the 2-page business plan.
Yeah.
I ask people all the time, you got a business plan? They're like, yeah, I think it's like in a Word document stored on SharePoint. How many pages is it? I don't know, like 50 or 60. How many times have you looked at it? I looked at it like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
That VTO, you look at it quarterly, and it gets rowing people in the right direction.
Yeah.
That's where you can continually get people to go back and look at where are we going as a company. But VTO.
So do you guys require during the segue everybody give something?
Yes, required. Personal and professional.
Okay.
And most people, when they first come into a meeting, they've never been in a meeting before, they're like, I don't understand. Why do I have to share something personal?
Yeah.
And I'm like, tell me your dog stopped peeing on the carpet.
Right.
Tell me, the garbage was picked up on time. I don't care. Tell me something, but it humanizes the meeting. It humanizes the people.
I'll tell you something funny. This is going to make me seem like a jerk, but there were other issues that led to this, but I actually let somebody go because they didn't give something good, and it was. This is when the whole company was in, and it was in I don't have anything going on for the business side. And I'm like,
really?
No. Well, you don't have anything going on? There was it was coming and
it was confirmation.
That was just like the straw that, and we're actually really good friends today.
Sure.
We talk almost every day through text. And it was just like, hey, you need to find something else to do.
But that meeting pulse is huge.
Did you say that every level 10 meeting should be set at no longer than 90 minutes?
90 minutes.
But could it be shorter than 90 minutes?
It can be shorter. If you run out of issues.
Okay.
And basically there's 60 minutes of the 90-minute meeting that is for issues.
Okay.
I've seen meetings not go 90 minutes just because they solved all the issues.
Is not going 90 minutes okay?
It's okay. I mean, it's
not preferable. I could tell by your body language.
Well, some of ours are shorter, and to be honest, to me, those are the best ones because we've solved all the,
My concern with meetings that are less than 90 minutes are: did you dig deep enough? Did you put big enough issues on the issues list? If you do, then you should pick the top 3 issues when you get to IDS, solve those, go to the next 3, go to the next 3, and you should have issues left over if you're doing it right.
So the last component that you now have brought up on 2 or 3 separate sentences that you've just said that we didn't mention. So the 6th component was issues.
Yeah.
And you and Bradley just chopped it up a little bit about, he said, well, sometimes we don't go 90 because we've solved all of our issues. And your response to that was, well, then you probably should have gone on to, are there other issues that we aren't talking about today that we need to talk about?
We have a lot of brush fires.
Yeah.
That
explain what that is, because I've heard that in the EOS.
The problem that's not going to be solved
today
in one meeting.
Yeah.
Right. And
so those items you can put on the long-term issues list that you hit at the quarterly.
Like we've got most of my problems right now are that it's stuff that we've got to solve by the end of the year.
Yeah.
Whether it's personnel, it's different things like that.
I don't understand, because if I have a brush fire, okay, and that brush fire is something that's not going to be solved in a day or 30 minutes or one phone call, would you not still want to put some component of that brush fire on a weekly level 10 meeting just to
You can talk about
almost
it.
wrap your head around every week to, hey, this is still sitting
I'll
out
give
here.
you one. Can I give you an example?
Yeah, sure.
So our Gulf Shores office, it is not integral to the operation. When we acquired that agency, it came with it. So there's a strong chance that we might close that office when the lease renews or move it because...
How much time do you have to make a decision?
April.
Oh, you got plenty of time.
So it's, it's that office is
it's
costing
in a monitoring
that
phase.
office is costing me $80,000 a year between rent, lease,
power,
insurance, power, water, receptionist, all that kind of stuff.
You ought to cancel the insurance. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. And so that, and we might not, hopefully none of the people that work there listen to this podcast, but, and we're going to move everybody work from home.
Sure.
But it was one of those things that my ego is what was, my ego is what meant, cause like it's on 59 right on the main, literally everybody that goes to the beach, like, man, I saw your office. That's awesome. I'm like, I wish you'd come look at this one. This one's nicer. Yeah. But that's something that, hey, it's on there. We've got to,
you got to solve it, but you don't need to solve it today. You don't need to solve it next week. That goes into the long-term issues,
right? Where
those are things that need to be addressed, but not on. There maybe a brush fire, but they're not on fire like the building's burning down.
Right. And to give everybody context, just the listeners who's got an audience of insurance agents, we think what our plan is because we do have some customers that walk in the office. Now, in my opinion, it's usually the more problem-oriented customers that are
20%
that
that gives you
80%
of the problems. Yeah.
And so our plan is to tell the team in November, which actually this podcast will be out by then, so it doesn't matter that I said it. Tell the team in November, and then we have 6 months. I think 6 months.
So the decision's already been made.
95%.
Okay. What would keep you in that other 5% category from going back the other direction? If y'all just started wearing it out over there, writing business or something?
Maybe we get some kind of walk-in that we wouldn't have got.
So what you're doing is you're doing IDS.
What is that? What is
you're
IDS?
Identifying the problem.
Okay.
You're discussing the problem,
right.
and you're working to solve the problem.
So the way
that's the key to those meetings is that identify, discuss, and solve. Not don't just put it off. You solve it. You have an action to do something to solve that issue.
And in the short period of time, will you agree that you and I have never met before?
I agreed. Yeah.
Don't know each other. We've known each other now for
40 minutes, 30 minutes,
maybe 45 minutes.
Sure.
From a psychological profile of myself, just a guess on your part, I mean, obviously not knowing each other very long, what would you identify me as?
What would I identify you as?
In terms of
a visionary integrator?
You're a man.
Visionary or integrator or...
I would see you as a visionary.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wondered.
Yeah, I don't...
Because sometimes an outside source third party can give you a perspective of